Throughout history, free thinkers have outraged the religious with their wacky ideas about the virtues of free speech, reason, and of course, eating babies. Now, God is dying, and it's time to dispose of his remains. From the pits of hell, Satan sends two puppets of the imperialist West and the Zionist Jews against God, Islam, and tiny kittens to bring you their propaganda and conspire for a new world order. This is Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment with Ali Rizvi and Armin Navabi.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. My name is Ali Rizvi, and with me as always is Armin Navabi.
Hello.
I just wanted to say your name a little bit differently. Yes, and today we're going to have a conversation that is actually one of my favorite kind of conversations. And our guest, who I'm going to introduce to you in a second, he emailed us, and he said that he is a listener of the podcast. He is a Muslim. Said he said he's not a scholar. He's not a blogger. Nothing, we've had people like that in the past, like other sort of believing Muslims, but he's saying that he represents lay Muslims. And we talk about lay Muslims on the show. What do Muslims really think? What do average, normal, everyday Muslims think? He said that he wanted to come on and talk to us and engage with us and actually challenge some of the things that we say. And immediately, like Armin and I both said, yes, we should totally have him on because we want that kind of engagement. We want that kind of conversation. And we don't want this. I mean, it's unavoidable to make something an echo chamber sometimes, but we don't want this to be a total echo chamber. And so we have a lot of respect for you, Mohammed Ali Saadi. Welcome. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm really grateful that you're here. By the way, we have had other Muslims in the show, but we had mostly expert Muslims in the show. But I do think it's very important. We talk about,
lay Muslims
a lot, and it's important to have those discussions as well. To just because not every Muslim is supposed to be an expert, and not every Muslim pretends to be an expert as well, right? But those could be good conversations with and a lot of people want to see, like, okay, I've seen conversations with this person that claims to have credibility, but what about the average Muslims, which is most Muslims, right? What do they think? What do they feel? What are their opinions? And I think it's really great that you can, and it's very brave of you to come on the show, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people, I really hope if you are one of our Muslim audiences, please email Ali, and we would love to have more Muslims on the show because average Muslims don't, it's very hard to get a picture of what average Muslims think because it's very diverse group, right? So to be able to give a better understanding, you can't just have like one or two. We have to have a lot of average Muslims on the show.
Right. So I'm gonna move it over to you, Ali. I'll call you probably Muhammad or Ali or whatever at some point. But so to start with, just tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what is a lay Muslim.
So here's the thing, first of all, again, as Armin mentioned that, he would like to have other such people on the podcast. But the thing is, as I said, in their defense, to them, a written engagement is probably much better because, it stays there as part of the record. Even this does, they relate to it more. They relate to a written engagement more.
Your microphone is touching your shirt and making noises. Can you make it? Sorry about that. Yeah,
is it okay now?
Yeah. Just make sure it doesn't hit your shirt.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So for them, what means more to them is something tangible and like written. So that's on their part. But lay Muslim, many times, previously in your podcast, you have said that, they don't know, in Abdullah Samir's podcast, it was said that, he, someone who is misguiding the dumb Muslims, and all that. This term gets thrown around a lot, and I'm not here, it will be wrong to say that I just represent them. I don't represent anyone. I'm just myself. But some things that are said openly, which me I feel that they don't make much sense. So I'm here to say, as a human to human, person to person, without any much scientific evidence kind
Yeah.
of baggage.
And how religious are you?
Yeah, well, you see, here's the thing. This is also said in the previous podcasts. Like, is the audio okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, many times, when you have those ex-Muslims on your podcast and you ask them, how religious were you? For example, Faye, you guys at Faye, and then there was this thing that just because the way she said things, they were like really authentic. Suddenly, it's like oh, you were so serious about it. That the contemporaries in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, Abu Jahl, his Arabic would be way better than people who we know now. So the way things are said, how regularly they pray. Abdullah Gondal used to give sermons. So when once he leaves the faith he used to be a part of, suddenly because he gives some sermons, he becomes an overnight expert. These are not really the things that they might matter a little bit, but they don't really matter a lot. Just because I know the name of two companions, I read Riyadus Salihin, I keep repeating.
Can we give some structure because because a lot of audience are confused of what we're talking about. I just want to give some structure to because you wanted to mention three things, and this seemed to be the third thing that you wanted to bring up. Not and we're talking about the first one.
Yes.
The three things that you want to talk about is that the fact that on our show we think that Muslims deserve credit individually for the good things they do. Islam doesn't deserve any credit for the good things Muslims do. You wanted to challenge that. The second thing you wanted to challenge is when every time we mention something that is very something that we discover about Islam, and feel like Muslims don't know about this. If a lot of Muslims knew about this, they would be shocked, they would be surprised, and you want to challenge that idea. And the third thing you wanted to challenge was the way we're biased about some of the things that we talk about, and this, what you're talking about right now, I think fits in that third category, right? And you mentioned that
this was.
You mentioned
you're right. Majorly, this was like in response to the question that am I religious or not. And my basic point here is that the word religious is we have mapped onto certain actions, and those actions which are obvious to us, it doesn't necessarily mean that
okay.
Me being religious, it doesn't mean something. That
we can start with the third thing first, Armin.
Okay, but I want to just quickly say I think you're using the words expert and religious interchangeably, as if we say somebody is religious, that means they're an expert. Most religious people are not expert. When we say somebody was very religious, we're not claiming that they were expert. If somebody takes their religion seriously, and somebody that lives in Australia that is born to a white family has any amount of knowledge about Arabic, they are way more religious than most Muslims in the world, right? Religious does not mean, and I could tell you, growing up as Muslim in an Islamic country, most people didn't bother to learn Arabic. Somebody that bothered to learn Arabic, even though that was not their mother tongue, that makes them way more religious than average. Even if you don't want to call them an expert, that is religious. Even if you do 5 times prayers a day, you're already more religious than most Muslims. That's all it takes to be religious. Go on.
Yeah, but you see, you're linking being religious with knowing, and more like the academic side, and the vocabulary. He knows more.
How would you define religious? How would you define it?
I mean, it's all a matter of what is ingrained in your heart. Someone, some poor man in the streets of, let's say, Africa is removing a thorn from the path of the people walking by. That is being religious, because you are being motivated by something that the text tells you to do, and this is what I would call being religious.
But I would do that too. Ali, like I would, if there's a thorn in the path of people, I would do that. If there's a homeless guy on the street and I have spare food from my takeaway order and I have a dog, I'll give him the food. I won't be thinking, am I going to hell? Did the Quran tell me to do this? Did the Bible tell me? I would just do it because I empathize with the person, and I know how I would feel if I was in their situation. But that doesn't make me religious.
Okay, we're now talking. You guys really want to focus on semantics? And definition of words? Okay.
Let's just keep it. Let's keep it going.
All right, let's keep that going.
I think this is good.
So here's what I'm saying, that defining, to you, maybe being religious would be, knowing how to say madhab properly. But to many, that's not the case.
No,
that's not what we said. That's not what we said. But let me just tell you.
But you did say that she knew this, so this shows that how serious she was.
That was serious.
It doesn't reflect this. Just knowing the words.
I don't think it's that black and white.
It's not that black and white. It's all relative. Okay, it's all relative. If you want to talk, if somebody goes and memorizes the Quran, okay, compared to the average Muslim, this person has taken Islam extremely more seriously. But this person,
and they're more likely to
hold
believe
on, Ali.
more,
Let me
too.
just finish one point. But compared to somebody that is getting a degree in Al Zahra University or in Qom, they're not very religious. Okay, compared to that person, right? But compared to 99% of Muslims in the world, this person is extremely way more religious. Somebody that has spent their time to memorize the Quran or the Nahj al-Balagha or something like that. Right?
But Ali, you're saying that being religious, you're talking about it interchangeably as somebody who does good things. Like you can have somebody who doesn't know about the Quran. Like I think I know what you're saying. You're saying that someone, he may not know the Quran, may not have memorized it, may not be an expert in religion, but they may just believe so strongly in the faith, and they believe and that causes them to do certain actions and have a certain sort of level of belief in faith.
Because it is comprised of both rituals and your actions. Right. So both of these are important. So if someone is like this average dude working 9 to 5 in order to provide for his family, this action is mandated by the religion.
Okay, so, but that's not religious. That's not religious, because that's something you could see from a non-religious person. For something to be religious,
you can, but you can also see it from the religious perspective.
Right, okay,
these little things in life also make people.
Okay, but both religious people and non-religious people wipe their ass. Just because religious people also wipe their ass doesn't make wiping your ass a religious act, right? Like in Islam, you're supposed to clean the najas off your ass, right? You can't just come out the washroom without cleaning yourself, right? But non-religious people also do that. That doesn't mean that that's a religious act. For something to be religious, you have to see an action being, coming from a religion, and you can identify that this is an action that people do because of their religion and their religion alone, like praying, like doing the Hajj, like fasting during Ramadan.
No.
These are religious actions.
Armin, again, you are linking religion with exclusively rituals. But what I'm saying is, doing these things is a motivation from religion.
Okay, I think
things in itself makes a person religious. As I said, these little things in life that you do, even menial, you might not notice it. You might not even, take a moment to think about it.
So why is it when I'm doing it not religious?
A 9 to 5 dude working 9 to 5 to sincerely provide for his family is being religious.
Is it religious when I do it?
Yeah, for you, that's not the motivation, right? So no.
Okay, so I think that this is what the impasse is. Okay, the sort of the disagreement. I'm also I'm gonna try to explain what I think Armin's saying, and I kind of agree with him. There's a thing about symptoms, and there's something about what the thing is a symptom of. Like, for instance, If you have a fever, right? That fever could be a symptom of cancer. It could be a symptom of a cold, or it could be a symptom of you just having been vaccinated, right? Which is a good thing. You can get a mild fever after vaccination. So it really depends on the underlying thing. Now, what I think Armin is saying, right, and I would agree with it if he's saying it, is that if you have somebody who goes out of their way to perform certain actions, like goes out of their way to spend their savings on Hajj, goes out of their way to pray 5 times a day, wake up early in the morning, then does that mean 100% that they are doing it motivated by religion? No, it doesn't. But it is more likely that someone who engages in those actions is doing it out of deep religious faith. On the other hand, you could have somebody, and I know people like this. I know people who are like Sufis. I know a lot of Sufis. They smoke weed, they drink alcohol, they do all kinds of stuff. They just have this really strong belief in God. They're also very, very religious. But usually when you see people, most of the time, if they're drinking and smoking and, having sex, then chances are they're just not very, they don't have a lot of religious faith. So it's a thing of probabilities.
Right.
You're right. You can be religious in both ways.
It's also a thing of balance. You see, if someone's smoking, clubbing, and all that stuff, they will not be considered religious, because what's in your heart will also reflect on your actions. So I cannot just claim to be if I'm praying or going for Hajj and all that, and at the same time I'm doing the things that are prohibited, then then there's something wrong inside, because what's in your heart will also reflect in the little everyday.
It goes the other way around too. It goes the other way. Like what your actions are, will more often than not, in most cases, what your actions are will also reflect what's in your heart. What is in people's heart? That's what you're saying is.
Okay, let me actually.
Yeah, go on, Armin.
Let me agree with something Ali is saying. If somebody is going both of you are saying is correct. Actually, something both of you are saying is correct. It comes down to motivations, right? If you are going and helping the poor, for example, simply because it's part of your religion, not because you actually want to, then yeah, you are very religious, right? And if somebody is doing that, and they're an atheist, that's not a religious act. So, but there are certain actions that, like praying, fasting during Ramadan, and doing the Hajj, the motivation is almost exclusively because somebody is religious, right? Some other actions, like maybe giving to the poor, for example, might become, the motivation might be not from religion, but it could also be from religion. But if you're somebody that wouldn't have given to the poor if it wasn't for religion, and because of your religion, because you're checking a box because of doing your religious duties, and only because of that you're going and giving to the poor, then, and that's on your mind all the time, like, oh, is this according to Islam? Is this according to Islam? Then that, if that's on your mind all the time, that's also a sign of being extremely religious, even if it's actions that other people do. So I agree with you.
I'm sorry. I'm glad. There is a little nuance to that, in terms of what you believe in faith and religion. It's that it is said that God has placed good in every one of us, and in the category of that good is doing the good stuff and also finding your way to God. So these both come under the category of good. So in a way, if you see in a bigger picture, both these things are act of religiosity,
right?
Believing and doing good. I'm saying this in response to what you said, that if I'm doing something good and in my mind is always heaven, hell, fear of Allah, this motivation is placed innately in us. That's the belief.
But let's not go there, because that's not part of what I'm going to disagree with that, but that's going to take the conversation to a whole other direction that you mentioned you don't want to go to. But I just want to point out that even if it's true, even if some people are doing some things that is because of their religion, and it's all actions that non-religious people do, that doesn't really contradict what I've said, because there are certain other actions that mostly only religious people do. So when you see those actions, you could tell, okay, this person is religious, right? So if somebody is giving to the poor, just by observing that, you cannot tell if they're religious, because that might be coming from their religion. It might be just coming from their sympathy. I know you're trying to define, the way you want to define acts of sympathy is that it covers all good acts that are as to be religious, the way you're defining it. So, like, basically, even a heathen doing a good thing, it's coming from God or something. But that you're just claiming our morality for yourself by doing that. That's a sneaky way of doing that. But I'm gonna keep it. No, it's not religious. It's ours. It's just because of our sympathy. But there are certain other actions that if you notice in somebody, like praying, unlike giving to the poor, which I can't tell if somebody is religious or not, but praying, fasting, doing the Hajj, trying to learn Arabic, if somebody is doing those, I can say, like, this person is religious. I know this person is religious. I mean, I'm almost sure that this person is religious, right? So
yes. Let me. We have established that the person who prays, gave MSF khutbahs, and learned a few things, they were religious. We have established it.
Mm-hmm.
Once they leave that path, glorifying them on the basis that they were religious is not okay, according to me.
Okay, and
They
before you give your
left
reason, let me tell our audience why this is a sensitive issue. Because of a lot of Muslims listening to our podcast, they get I've seen this on Twitter as well. The problem that they have with our show is that we think, like, just because this person was religious and now they're not, we're making it seem like they're an authority and whatever they say about Islam is true.
For example, For example, in the Abdullah Samir, there is a repetitive mention. I was a staunch believer. A person like me who was religious, a person like me who made a website with Abdurrahim Green, and a person like me who's okay. That person was you. Now you have left it. Now the both of those things don't have anything to do with each other. Had they anything to do with each other, he wouldn't have left it.
Why not? Why don't they have? Why don't they have anything to do with each other?
Yeah, because the moment that someone has left it, they were not in it completely. That's the sign.
No.
So what if I was a drug addict, and now I recovered from my drug addiction? Doesn't that give me like some? Doesn't my experience in leaving it? Does that mean that if I go out and try to help other people leave their drug addiction, can somebody come to me and say, like, listen, you're not a drug addict anymore, so why are you talking to us about how leaving drug addiction? You can only talk about it while you were a drug addict.
Yeah.
But no, maybe my experience leaving it gives me better. Why is it completely irrelevant? How is it not connected?
Your experience as a former drug addict will not you will not go in the anatomy of the drugs. You will just say your experience about it. But people like mentioning. See, my only issue is people using that platform of, I was religious, and if I left it, there must have been something wrong.
Wait, no, that's a straw man.
But that's not what they say.
That's a straw man, man. That's a straw man. You're
don't say that.
What they're saying.
Let me just make. I'll give you another example of this. What about people who are converting into Islam? There are people who come from, who are atheists, who are Christians, who are something else, and then what they do is they convert to Islam, and then they talk about the way of the disbelievers. I mean, in Islam, one of the biggest things, if you read through the Quran, it's always talking about disbelievers. They're talking about disbelievers. They're talking about what disbelievers think, how disbelievers live, what should be done with disbelievers, about their morality. I mean, Islam makes many claims right in the Quran, almost on every page, about what the other side does, the people who
Well,
don't believe, then how is it? Then why is it that if someone was deeply religious and really understood, and I know this because I was one of them, and then you come out, and now you want to talk about that experience and what it was like. I think it's the same thing.
Talk about experience. But don't use that platform to come off as someone who is an authority.
Wait.
But here, sorry. Let me finish what I was saying, Armin. But what if? First of all, nobody. I have a problem with the word expert or authority. We usually use that in a very sort of facetious kind of sense. So we don't say expert or authority.
When have we ever used that? Have you ever called yourself an expert, Ellie?
No, we've never. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I'm saying when we say it, we usually say it as facetious. Oh, this person's not an authority. But we never pretend that anybody is an authority. But I know people. Like I have. There are people.
But Ali, I'm sorry for interrupting you again.
No.
Please do that. Please
Yeah,
we're interrupting you.
The
So
thing is,
you
I
should
know
interrupt
you might not.
You interrupt us. Go.
You might not claim that they're authority, but you have a 2-hour podcast on the life of the Prophet, and Abdullah Gondal is someone who has left Islam, right? And to do a podcast on the life of the Prophet is like this 2-hour I call it in some secular jihadist institute class,
Right.
on
Wait.
how his life.
But he knows about it.
Yeah, he knows about. You know how easy it is to know the life. You think the life of a prophet is like rocket science? Do you know how easy it is to read about?
People have spent their lives.
No, Armin.
uncovering it.
I disagree with you, Armin.
I disagree with you back.
I want to.
Wait.
No. The reason I'll disagree with you here, I disagree with you too, Ali. But
let me finish my point, okay? The life there's details about the life of Muhammad and the way. Okay, there's a level that anybody that could read could understand. There's some basics. There's some battles that were won and lost. There were some, and people could talk about it. People could find some of it fascinating, could find some of it ridiculous, could find some of it inspiring. And anybody, it's not rocket science. Anybody that could read a storybook could read this and understand it, and people could get together and talk about it. Okay, you don't have to believe in Zeus to start talking about stories of Zeus. Okay, people that enjoy Greek mythology get together and they have book clubs and talk about stories of ancient gods, and none of them believe in any of it. They don't say like, hey, if you don't believe in Zeus, why are you talking about these stories? They have podcasts about it. They have book clubs about it. They are passionate about it. Yeah, go on.
But the thing is, when that started, the introduction of the guest and the reason to have him to be the purpose of the episode and the person who was on that episode. So it was more like, having an instructor specifically for that class. You get my point?
No, I get your point, and that's wrong.
Just because he claims to be someone who is,
okay,
who knew three companions. Maybe he read.
Okay. Let me give you some relative. All of this is relative. Okay, I have talked to most people like, oh, you're saying that you're experts. First of all, when people say you're saying, I've heard the word expert mostly by the people that are against us. I have never heard. I hope I've never referred to ourselves as experts. Okay, the only time I hear the word experts is the people that are accusing us of calling ourselves experts. Like I see it on Twitter. Muslims are like, oh, these people are saying they're experts. Like, no, you're calling us experts. Okay. So, but yet, there's different levels. I can tell you, the vast majority of Muslims have no idea about any of these things. Okay? I have talked to so many Muslims, average Muslims.
Yeah, maybe you have, others have too.
I know. And most Muslims, if you make a random hadith, a random verse of Quran, they believe it's in the Quran. If you most Muslims I've talked to them about different verses in the Quran, they had no idea this was in the Quran. Most Muslims, let me tell you, for the past 15 years, I've been talking to many Muslims. I ask average, not Muslims that are activists, but average Muslims. I ask them to name me the 5 pillars of Islam. Most Muslims cannot name me the 5 pillars of Islam. Any person, not just
those are the Muslims you talk to.
For 15 years, not just myself, okay? Not just ex-Muslims. Any average person that has never been Muslim, they spend 1 hour, half a day maximum, studying the Islam. After half a day of studying Islam, now they know more about Islam than 90%. No, I'm not going to give you a number. Most Muslims in the world. Any person studying Islam for half a day knows more about Islam than most Muslims in the world. So
can I bring another angle?
Let me finish this point, okay? We don't say we're experts, but we know more than I can easily say that we know more than most people. We know more than most Muslims. We even know more than most ex-Muslims. But that's not enough to make us experts. Experts is somebody that has an academic degree in something, and that's why we have guests. It's basically the difference is like somebody, let's say somebody is studies Greek mythology as a passion. They're interested in it. It's a hobby. They're not experts, but they have read a lot of books about it.
Yeah.
They started a book club. They started a podcast.
Yeah.
They know more than most people about Greek mythology. But the experts are their guests sometimes. Like sometimes they have somebody with a degree, and those are the experts. He's not an expert, but he knows more about Greek mythology than most people. Go on, Ali.
Okay, so I want to bring another angle. First of all, as far as the expert and authority, I think I can recall one of the people that we did refer to as an authority, which I think was legitimate, was Brian Earp, who came in and he talked about circumcision and FGM because
Tom Hollins.
He actually studies this in Yale and he's published a lot on it. But so I want to come at it from a different angle. So Ali, think about this. You and I both from Pakistan, right? So there's somebody who's lived in Pakistan all their life. They've never gotten on a plane, gotten out of there. Will they know something about Pakistan? Yes, they will, right? Now, someone who has lived in Pakistan for a lot of their life, then they went out and lived in Dubai or lived in the US or lived in America and saw Pakistan from that perspective. Will they know something else about Pakistan that the person who's living there won't? Yes, they will. If you go out into outer space, you're an astronaut, and you look at it, Pakistan, you're the first person ever to go out into space, and you look down and you see Pakistan from outer space. Are you going to know additional things about Pakistan that guy in Pakistan or the other guy in Chicago or wherever does not know? Yes, you will see those things. So one of the advantages, the reason, even if Abdullah Gondal isn't an expert, one of the advantages of having him on the show is that when I grew up and I learned about the Prophet's life, I learned all good things. They were very rosy, right? They were about what he did, the miracles, how he was known as honest and friendly and all of that. So I learned about all of the, So I learned all about all of that character. But the thing is that Abdullah Gondal also has that view. He also was raised and he learned everything about the Prophet that you did, that all Muslims did. But then he has also viewed the Prophet's life from an objective or a non-religious perspective. So he's looked at him as just a historical figure, right? No, he has, and he has said he has said good things about him, and he's said bad things about him, and he's analyzed him in that way too. So just like you can have different angles or different views of a country or a person, depending on where you are, Abdullah Gondal has 2 vantage points. As somebody who read about the Prophet in a positive way when he was a Muslim, and also somebody who's read about him in a dispassionate way when he was not Muslim.
But Ali, I understand that you have like a wide audience, but the thing is, you had the podcast for a purpose, and you had a specific guest for that purpose. It must be based on something, right? Now
that's what it was based on. That's what it was based on.
Yeah, because we all read the same anecdotes about the tidbits, trivia about the life of the Prophet, but condensing it in, like, being a reductionist, and to condense it, I know you have time limitations, but in the end, what happens? People form their opinions, based on the 2 hours on someone whose life has been studied enormously. I think that would be forcing yourself to be factually incorrect, because in those 2 hours you are you're in a hurry, you're saying things that might be, and I left a very long comment on that, on the audio of that episode on YouTube. But my point is basically, he's, the gentleman is just an example. Having him on the podcast for that specific podcast,
So,
and
I have a
you
question.
said that it was because of,
Finish your
sure.
thought, and then Armin.
Finish
Go
it.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Finish your thought.
you had him on because he had read. Okay, fine, he had read, but still, he it's not equal to someone who actually is an expert and has some proper academic references. You cannot condense something as huge in a 2-hour thing for people to come.
No.
One-
You said
just one sentence before.
Okay,
One
sentence.
just
Go ahead.
one
Okay.
sentence. Okay, I'm just being a little. So here's the thing. It's not that somebody else would be more qualified. I don't want to have somebody on the podcast who will tell me
two
something
sentences.
that every Muslim in the world already grew up learning. I want to provide something
3 sentences.
that is also authentic, that will also be backed up by the hadith and the Quran and all that stuff, but that with, like, Abdullah Gondal shows all of that stuff, but also gives a different view. That was a long sentence.
That was 7 sentences.
No, it was one sentence. Grammatically, it was one sentence. Anyway, go ahead, Armin.
I forgot. Okay. So first of all, so you think that we could only have a show about the life of Muhammad that covers every single aspect of it? Like, by that standard that you have, nobody can have a 2-hour podcast about the life of Muhammad, because obviously there's way more.
You shouldn't have a podcast on the life of the Prophet.
We shouldn't have a live podcast at all about the life of Muhammad. Okay, that's a very strange request. But would you make that request?
Yeah.
Because would you? Let's say
it would be academically unfair. It would. I'm not saying because I am biased or anything. It would.
All right. Let's say some average. Have you ever gone? So you left a long comment on our podcast, right? Would you? Let's say some Muslim. Hold on. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you this question. Okay. Let's say some Muslim woman, young Muslim women, have these podcasts that are discussing these things, Islam. Okay, these are all semi-religious Muslim women that they love their faith, and they have podcasts about Islamic sisters and all that, right? And one of their episodes,
which they do.
Yeah, there's many of that. Like, say one of their episodes, this is just casually just talking about and having fun about, like, reading the Quran, reading the Hadith together with their audience. Let's say one episode they have a episode about the life of Muhammad and how great Muhammad is. And there's a 2-hour episode. Are you going to go on their podcast and leave a comment and be like, dear sisters, why are you having a 2-hour episode about how great Muhammad is? You sisters are not scholars. You should not be telling other Islamic sisters how great Muhammad is, because this is not an academic research of the life of Muhammad. You shouldn't have this 2-hour episode. Would you do that? Would you do that? Would you leave that comment on their podcast?
Yeah, but in that case, if people are forming opinions, then I would say that if it's meant to be something academic, then you better have a longer session with all the nuances.
But
Wait, it wasn't meant to be academic. Did we start the show by saying, like, we are going to have an academic, scholarly, historical review of Muhammad's life? Did we start the show like that? So you're saying
this is what you said, that there's a lot we don't know, and we're going to uncover this as if, like, he's He is the only source, and that uncovering
Wait, no, you
will be the
added.
only uncovering
You're
that
just adding a lot of stuff
No,
that we
but
didn't say.
that's clear.
You're saying, first of all, you're adding the words academic and scholarly yourself. We never said that. You also now adding the words like as if he's the only person. Did we say that we just found the only person that knows certain secrets about the life of Muhammad that no one has ever heard before? Did we? Is that how we started the show? Did we? Or
Yeah,
is this
but
just
no,
the stuff that you're
but-
saying? Yeah.
But this is what was said now, right? Because Ali said that he had a different reading on his life. That's why he had him on the show.
Okay, I did, but that doesn't mean that I think that it's the only thing. He's an interesting guest to have on. Look, we had him on to talk about the life of Muhammad. We've also had Daniel Hakikaju on to talk about Islam and whatever he thinks about it. We've had Tom Holland on too, and he actually is an expert. He's a historian, an academic, scholarly expert.
And about
that,
Tom Holland also,
that you don't agree with, so he's not a
no,
scholar.
no. That's whether we're not talking about whether you listen. I disagree with Tom Holland on many things too, right? But the thing is that he actually was one, and we had him on to get his perspective.
And we have invited a lot of scholar Muslims that never come on our show. Because so what do we like?
And we've had Asadullah on, to talk about his perspective. We've had and we have you on now to talk about it as well. So it's not a matter of go on.
If we can go on about this, but if I just abruptly move on to just because you mentioned Tom Holland and I listened to that podcast, but it was I'm sorry for in case it sounds offensive, but it was little nauseating and near the end when there was this very ultra peak revisionist theory, and you guys were actually making him say some things that he didn't want to say, and this was noticed by not just me. I think two other people, two other random people who commented that it's kind of like
now we're on the
words
second question, which is good.
No, it's not the second question. The second question was
this is the thing about will people be shocked about that kind of. So it's like all the Petra.
So I've seen let me clarify what he's saying to our audience, because I noticed some of those comments by Muslims on Twitter. People are saying that I tried to make Tom Holland say something about the direction of Kaaba that he didn't want to say. Actually, no, I didn't. I just wanted to know his opinion. Okay, especially given that I read his book and he wrote his book before those. So a lot of people are saying like Tom Holland didn't want to say that the direction of Kaaba is not towards Mecca.
No. It's not about what he wanted to say or what he didn't. It was your insistence on him saying that was uncanny.
Okay, no, I wasn't. No, you misunderstood because you weren't paying attention to what I was trying to say. I wasn't trying to get him to say the things that I wanted to say. I would have been happy if he denied it as well. I just wanted to make sure that he gives us his opinion on it. Whether if he agrees in it, like what the Muslims on Twitter. Hold on. What Muslims on Twitter are saying is that Armin really wants this to be true, that the direction of the Kaaba is not towards Mecca, and this
it came off as you did really want that.
Yeah, what I really wanted is for him to not. I noticed that he didn't want to say much on it. I think because he has since he wrote his book about Islam, he has moved on to other things now, and he hasn't looked into these new recent claims, right?
Or maybe he didn't want to say it because there wasn't much weight to it.
No, he told us before the show that
he talked to us before, so we can't get into too much detail. So
let me finish my point. I just wanted to say that what I was very excited to just see because we don't get access. This is a lot of new stuff. We don't know how true this is. We don't know if these claims are just, stuff that people are making up or if there's any credibility to it. We don't get that many scholars on our show. And this is very fascinating to me. And I want this guy to give me his opinion on it. Of course I'm excited about it. Of course I'm trying to push to get an opinion from him. What the hell? What do you expect?
So this speaks for, what I was also thinking. That, this person, and I quote, Armin just wants to confirm his prejudices and conspiracy theories. Tom Holland is carefully following the evidences and not jumping to definitive conclusions, and that's the hallmark of a true scholar. And one can argue why he believes something or doesn't agree with the point. It seems like you are being very desperate for it not to be Makkah and clinging for it to be disproved 100% when there is so much mystery for them.
Right.
These are some of the sentiments of not me, of people.
Yeah, I know. I've seen those, and let me respond to it. First of all,
do you think, Armin, do you understand why people may have thought that you were being too?
That's what I'm trying to respond. If you let me, okay. First of all, you say confirm what I want to be true. First of all, I have said every time that we don't know yet, but it would be exciting if this is true. Like every time we talked about this, I've never said this is real, this is true. I said this is something that is new, is very interesting, and I'm fascinated about it. So confirm something that Armin wants to be true. How is that possible? Even though every time I said Armin is saying it's true, even though every time I said we don't know if this is true. So that's a contradiction. Second of all, a hallmark of a true scholar. Did I ever say I'm a scholar? Like, are you guys saying...
No, hold on. He was talking about Tom Holland.
I know. You're saying he's following the evidence. He's a scholar, so Armin is not... Well, of course I'm not a scholar. Of course he's a scholar. I'm not a scholar. Like, people are trying to attack me by saying he's a scholar. Armin is not. Well, of course. Win for you guys. I accept that. I accept that defeat. He's a scholar and I'm not. Third thing. You're saying that I want this to be true? Yeah, I actually would want this to be true because it would be incredible. That doesn't mean I'm saying I'm not saying it's true though. I'm saying I don't know. But I would love it to be true because that would be incredible if it's true. But I'm never saying it. I've never said that it's true. I am skeptical about it. I have no idea. I'm not a scholar. That's why we bring scholars on our show. I'm trying to see.
Ali, go ahead. Yeah.
But the bias that exists make you, as a host, it makes you kind of, wanting for it to be true, even though I'm sure you want it, but you are. That's reflecting on the way you're questioning.
Yeah. Okay. Is the accusation that I'm biased? I am biased, and I make it very clear. Of course, I'm biased. I am biased, and I make it transparent for our audience to know, so that they can take that into consideration.
Don't make it reflect on the way you're hosting, right? Because that will, shift the objectivity.
No, I will change my hosting based on my biases. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of having this show. My bias is against Islam. That's why, for example, of course, am I going to let my anti-Islam bias reflect on the show? Yes, every single minute, if I could help it. Okay.
No, there's it is true. Like, if I'm a podcast host and you're an expert on heart disease, and I say, Ali, Dr. Ali, you're an expert on heart disease. Can you tell me, if I have 2 drinks a day, will that reduce my chance of heart disease? And you say, no, as an expert, I can tell you that drinking is not good for you, the alcohol. Well, oh, come on. Can't it be true? I read a study. Can you tell me? If we have a conversation like that, for podcast format, it's okay. It's not an academic conference. First of all, the other thing is I want to make sure that people are jumping to assumptions about what Tom Holland actually thinks. We did talk to Tom Holland before. It wasn't that he was holding back because he didn't truly believe it. We cannot force Tom Holland to say anything that he doesn't want to say. But we do know certain things he thinks, and we know that he does not want to necessarily say them. And a lot of scholars are like this. They have their ideas, they have their educated guesses, but they don't want to actually publicly come out and say them unless there's definitive evidence, right? Which there isn't. There is not definitive evidence that, Petra is the real Mecca. And the second thing is, Tom Holland actually he went through a lot when he made the documentary. He got a lot of death threats. He had to protect his family.
I'm not judging. Yeah. No. Just it's everyone has their own mindset, sensitivities, and I'm in no way judging. I'm only objecting at just because the mention of Tom Holland inspired this what I said, the whole Tom Holland thing, that the way he was being questioned on the Petra thing, it was as if he was pushed to give a certain answer. And I just
I
want to
really
follow
don't
it up.
think I have that power over a scholar to
Yeah,
push
no.
them to change.
But we already
to
had
tell me something
we already
that
had
they
that
don't.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
honestly, if you
just
think
in
that
the-
was
in
my
the end,
motivation, you're giving me you then you really don't understand what I was trying to do, because I never think like I could force somebody to say, especially somebody that is an expert in giving their opinion. I really don't
No,
think
no,
I have that
you
power
cannot
over them.
force.
Of course,
You
I don't
cannot
think.
force.
I don't think. I think you guys are saying like, oh, he was trying to make him say something else. Like, really? Do you think I'm gonna? I have this delusion that the scholar is on our show and he has a different opinion, and I'm gonna pressure him into saying something
No,
that he
you
doesn't
don't-
agree with. Like, are
I'm
you
not
serious?
saying. I'm not saying you have the power to change opinion, and you do not have the power to change the opinion. But you're inclined a certain way that
Yeah,
that
I am.
that tweaks with the objectivity of the podcast. So
I am. I am
that's all.
biased. Is that what you're saying? I'll admit it. I am extremely biased. Okay, I admit that right here to you.
Okay, so
And you just one last thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Thing about it.
yeah.
According to I'm citing one of the scholars that I admire a lot, Dr. Jonathan Brown. I cited that a book by Robert Hoyland, Islam as Others Saw It. Robert Hoyland is someone academic, and he has a say. He said that the qiblas, they generally point towards Makkah, and in the rare case that they don't, otherwise they just made a mistake. That's what Robert Hoyland saying. That's the one of the academic conclusions of the thing that was there was so much argument about.
I mean, if we want to open that, because you're saying something that if I want to respond to, it's going to change the whole direction of
That's
this.
the thing. See, lay Muslims are not shocked with the whole Petra thing because
Well, I have met many of them that they are, so I don't know what
you have met.
All right, so
but
don't say
doesn't
they are
mean-
not, as if you just started this show by saying that you're not representing all Muslims, right? So don't come here and say average Muslims are not shocked, as if they're all going to react the same way.
We agree on
something.
hashtag not all.
Yeah.
Okay, not
no,
all.
But so there are many of them that maybe are not shocked, but I have met also many of them that are extremely shocked. So I don't know what you're saying.
And there are, just like I cited, this book by Robert Hoyland. These are, these things are established, and
Okay,
it's
you're
always
getting
like,
into academic argument. I could give you scholars that disagree with that.
Yeah, they're actually David King, for instance.
and then I could give you 10 more, and
Yeah,
this could go
so
on.
we don't
But
know.
The point is
So the point is that we don't know, and it's interesting, and I'm fascinated about it. Okay, so we never said
you're
like
fascinated, but I mean, these things are established, and
it seems like you
making
are
the
also
claim-
biased. So you're saying no.
Hold on,
Okay,
guys. Time out.
See,
So
just-
I want to ask Ali. So Ali,
No. Okay, if you want to change the conversation,
no, I'm not changing the conversation.
No,
I want to
I'm
get
saying
because
that
the thing
you're Ali. You are doing exactly what you're saying I'm doing. Okay, I would be very interested to see if it's true that the direction of Mecca is wrong all these years, and I'm looking at the scholars that are pointing out that it might have been wrong, and you're saying I'm biased, and I'm saying yes, I am biased, because that would be fascinating to me, and you are also biased because you are very biased to show that no, it was always correct, and now you're pointing to the scholars that agree with your position. So you're doing exactly what I'm doing.
There's no way. Guys, sorry, Ali. I'm just gonna interrupt because I want to ask you something. I want to turn this sort of conversation around a bit. On the same topic. There is a plausible theory, not just based on the qiblas, right? Not just, and this is an actual theory among Islamic scholars, right? It's among published work. They're qibla experts that include David King as well, and he's disagreed with Dan Gibson, but he's also kind of said a lot of the same things as him. But there's a plausible theory that the Quranic descriptions of Mecca, right? That they coincide with something else. The fact that it was on the trade route coincides with something else. That episode we talked about all of the other evidence. It wasn't just the Qibla. Yes. So not saying that it's true, just it's plausible. Now we want to sit and explore this topic with someone who has studied it. How do you think that conversation should go?
See, I agree that this is not an academic podcast, so I would allow a certain. I'm not saying I would allow if I don't
you
allow,
understand.
don't do it.
You
I'm not saying-
understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm saying, in that case, I would allow a certain bias because, it is, after all, secular jihadist, and,
Yes,
there is
thank you.
a certain audience. But the thing is, when there is the talk of opinion formation, then, it seems a little bit, immature.
Define
for,
what do you mean by there's the talk of opinion formation? You mean from the audience?
From the listener's point of view.
Okay, and what about that?
People might form opinions, and it's as it's good for us to be objective, so they make an informed decision, and
Okay. But that's on. Okay, so for example, that's on our listeners, right? You understand? Okay, you cannot. For example, what I do when it comes to, let's say, Western politics, right? There are certain people that I follow, and I know that these people are biased. Some of them are extremely left-leaning, some of them are extremely right-leaning. I don't want each one of these people to be not left or right. I'm going to them because they are biased. I try to be more objective by listening to both of these sides. It's on me to form my opinion by listening to more biased sources.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I'll give you that. Yeah.
if I'm listening to let's say I'm disagreeing with both the right wing and the left wing, but I'm listening to a left wing podcast because they're left wing. If one day they decide like let's be not left leaning, let's be completely objective about everything and not I'm going to stop listening to them because they were my source of left-leaning opinion, and the right-wing one was my source of right-leaning opinion, so I'm going to stop listening to them if they stop being right-wing.
Okay, now what Ali brought up about all the studies regarding it and all that, my point is not actually the content of the studies. My point is the result that you guys salivate over, the celebration over, now the Islamic world will shake completely. That's just,
no, that's not the celebration from my point of view.
The Islamic world has been shaken many times.
My question wasn't really whether the Islamic world will shake. What I think is, anytime you have an established sort of status quo of opinion that everybody's like, oh, okay, this is what we think. And then someone comes and turns it upside down and presents something contrary. The reason the Da Vinci Code, right, by Dan Brown, was such a big hit is because it provided an alternative, right, historiography of Christianity that was fascinating to people. The idea was, oh, is this possible? Right? That was interesting. So it's when you get excited about the possibility of something that you hadn't considered before. None of us are convinced that everything happened in Petra. Nobody's 100% convinced.
But making a claim. But for example, in the podcast with Tom Holland, Armin actually made a claim. No, I'm sorry. In the podcast that was the live stream, Quranic criticism shattering the myth of. So in that, Armin actually made a claim that now we have uncovered. You will see that this is going to shake the Islamic world.
If it's true. I said if this is true.
But there was this thing of,
Okay, first of all, this I cannot say it will, because I also say I don't know if this is true. Okay.
Wait, specifically, what was it, Ali?
He just said, Ali. No, hold on. He said that I said if this Petra thing, this Kaaba not being in Mecca and being Petra, it will shake the Islamic world. And Ali, you can't deny this. Okay, even if you disagree that this is true. Okay, if this was true, hypothetically, and it was more and more discovered that this was true, it would shake the Islamic world. But I said
you lost me at it.
Yeah, but but do you agree that so you could be like, well, it's not true, so it will not shake the
Listen.
But if it is true, it would. If it's true, it would.
Ali, go ahead.
Let me just say one thing.
By the way, our audience is very confused because we have two Alis. You're right. Okay.
I know. So maybe we should call you Mohammed.
Mohammed. Okay.
There you go. Right. Okay, Mohammed, go for it.
Nicholas Sinai You can look him up. Another, as I say, I'm citing someone I admire, John Brown.
Because you're
He
biased
cited a
like me.
scholar, Nicholas Sinai, who said that until somebody gets decent evidence, the state of the field of Islamic history should be that which the Muslims have. That is the word of
Wait,
until
can
you
you
get
repeat
something
that?
solid,
You
which
repeat
you
that, you
have
got
not.
cut.
Until somebody gets a very perfect, solid, and decent evidence of something otherwise, the state of the field of history should be the Muslim history of the compilation, stuff like compilation of the Quran and all these things.
No, but that's wrong.
So
That's straight up. That's objectively wrong.
That is
yeah, but
objectively wrong. But this is some
then
scholar that
it's
is saying
said by a scholar from Oxford.
That's
he's
fine, but
wrong.
it's
And that
but
scholar
it's still
from
wrong.
Oxford
I
is
mean,
wrong.
You can say he's wrong,
Yeah.
but
no, but
that's
let me
you.
explain to you why.
Yeah, I know that's me,
I'll-
and
hold-
I know it's me. Who else is saying it? Of course it's me. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
saying it because
No,
it's
but
my
he-
opinion, and I'm saying
he-
my opinion is that man is dead wrong. I
And
don't give
I'll
a
t-
shit that
no,
he's
here's
a scholar.
No, no, no. Oh,
yeah,
guys, we're going in
and
circles.
scholars
We're
are
going
wrong.
in-
Scholars can be wrong.
we are going in circles. Let me just one person saying it's wrong and he's at the other saying let me tell you why
Why?
he is objectively wrong. He's objectively wrong because the way to arrive at the true story behind anything, right, is to look for evidence supporting it, right? And during that time, you don't assume that something else is true. It's not like, okay, while we're researching evolution and while we've covered all of everything, gotten all the information about evolution, until then, we have to accept the biblical story of Genesis.
But Ali, I'm sorry, but
No, wait,
That's a
Mohammed, do you understand
classical
what I'm saying,
argument
though?
from ignorance.
I do.
Classical
No,
argument from ignorance from a scholar.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The thing is, the point to be noted over here is the phrase "state of the field." If there is some teeny tiny evidence elsewhere, you don't start using that as a course subject in big universities as a state of the field.
Ooh, depends how significant. You can have one piece of evidence that can undo everything, and then you can have 20 pieces of evidence
But
that don't make a mark. Right?
But until you have something solid that's approved by the mainstream, and as I said again, this is not me saying it. This is someone who is a professor. at Oxford
we're not.
saying
So we're not going to go with who's saying it, because obviously one of the big things here is we talk about that we
make-
shouldn't go with what somebody says. We should go with what the
Yeah,
evidence supports. Otherwise, we'd be believing in revelation as well.
Yeah,
But
no.
here- no. I know.
We're doing appeal to authority, and we're also doing
Yeah,
arguments from ignorance.
we're not gonna.
Go ahead.
I know what you mean. I know what you're saying about the state of the field. Okay, the state of the field. But what we can do, if you have the idea that you have a little bit of evidence, or that this evidence, it's about the quality of the evidence. If you have something in
but
the evidence,
does the mainstream accept that evidence? That's
no,
the thing.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. When Darwin came up with the theory of evolution, the mainstream did not accept it. When the Prophet Muhammad came up with his message of Islam, did the mainstream accept it? That didn't happen for a long time afterwards. Okay, when Galileo came up with his ideas about astronomy, he was thrown, like the Catholic Church persecuted him. This is throughout history. The first woman who said that women should have equal rights was called a whore by everybody.
Okay, yeah, I understand your point.
Mainstream acceptance is the Battle of Badr, right? How many people were on the Prophet's side and how many people were in the Quraysh? It was whole minorities and majorities. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, no. My point is, okay. You're saying that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was when he was a minority in Mecca, he was being persecuted, and until somebody gets decent evidence, until he had it was the point of the conquest of Mecca. Only then he made a point of publicly setting up a state, something like that. Until then,
We're
he was
talking
a
about
minority.
whether something is true. whether something is
No,
true.
no, no.
Just because the mainstream believes
no,
a main.
he came from the very first day. He came out and he said La ilaha illallah, and he said like, hey, come, with no evidence or nothing. He told
Did
people
he
to follow
conquer the
him.
city? No, he
No,
was
but he was
persecuted.
claiming
He had to
something.
migrate.
Wait, did these scholars conquer the city? No, they're just claiming
no,
something is true. Muhammad was just claiming something is true. No, Muhammad didn't conquer a city, and as the Oxford scholars
When he
also
was a
did not
minority, he didn't
conquer.
conquer.
Yeah.
When he was a
Yeah.
minority, he had to migrate, and so the community that makes the claims of these tiny evidences not accepted by the mainstream, they will have to do things
So
like
it was
migrate.
wrong.
And,
So his opinion was
they will
wrong
have to-
until it became mainstream.
Let him finish, Armin. Armin, let him finish. Let him finish. Go ahead, Mohammed.
they will have to accept that their opinion is a minority, which is why there's no point of claiming king of the
You-
Islam. Just to follow the thought, I want
Wait, no, I need to respond.
Armin, let him finish.
No,
one
because
thing.
he
Yeah, go
may
ahead.
finish that point. I need to
Jonathan
respond.
Brooks said in the Journal of American Academy of Religion that unless you have evidence that stands up to it's solid, you don't have the right to say that I'm breaking taboos and I've uncovered this, and there is a threshold until you reach such a solid evidence. Then you cannot make the claim.
That's a
of,
straw man. We're not saying that. We're saying that this is a possibility. Nobody's saying this is true. Okay? This is, by the way, this claim is being taken seriously by a lot of scholars. By a lot of scholars are rejecting it. A lot of scholars are skeptical about it. A lot of scholars, these are not just random bloggers and YouTubers talking about it. The claim that we are interested in, and people are just the scholars that are saying that this might be true, are scholars themselves, scholars that are respected and taken seriously by other scholars, including other scholars that disagree with them. They take them as seriously. This is not just some random conspiracy theories. All right.
I also think you're talking about two different things.
Yeah,
Mohammed.
you're saying like until it's proven, you shouldn't be saying this claim is true. When did we say it's true?
You can say that you can say that there's a possibility.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
But
Go on, Mohammed.
But I'm saying that the mainstream state of the field, the accepted state of the field, should be the one that is
not accepted.
You're saying two different things.
Mainstream.
Hold on. You're saying two different things. First of all, you talked about solid evidence. Then you talked about mainstream acceptance. Those are two completely different things. So there's this idea that you have something should not be. Someone proposes a brand new radical idea. Einstein comes and says, Newton's theory of gravity wasn't the correct one. Here's my general theory of relativity. This is a correct one. Initially, people laugh in his face. So really, are you going to challenge Newton after 300 years? So that happens. Now, what is it that you're using as a criteria? Do you want him to come up with solid evidence, or do you want there to be mainstream acceptance? Because there's what I think is that if you have evidence, right, then something is true, whether you have mainstream acceptance or not. On the other hand, you can have mainstream acceptance worldwide of something for millennia, like we did for slavery, and it can still be completely wrong, right? So I think that those two are completely different things.
Till you reach that point, just accept and claim that this is a very minority opinion, and it won't blow the lid off anything.
Minority among who? Scholars or Muslims?
No, but we did do that, Armin. He's right.
Yeah.
We did do that. We did say it's a minority
We said
opinion.
it's new.
And
we said it's
if it
interesting.
becomes, if we do get solid evidence of it, if we find out it was true, like supposing the other half of the Sana manuscript is found, right?
Yeah, I have a good example to give. For example, there's a asterisk with the product, and then down it says in very small fonts, terms and condition apply.
Yeah. Limited.
Yes. So you are being a reductionist when it comes to the if part, and you blow that part out of proportion when you say this is going to shake the Islamic world.
Muhammad, okay, so you want us to do this. You want us to do this with claims like the Petra thing and all of that stuff that actually have evidence. But then when it comes to claims in the Quran, right, about all kinds of things like virgins giving birth and the claims in the Bible about talking snakes, Adam and Eve, Noah and the worldwide flood, all of these things. This is one thing that I want to ask you as a lay Muslim, okay? Whenever I talk about something, evolution, whatever, they always say, well, where's the evidence? What about the missing fossil record? What about this? What about that? The Petra thing. Okay, this is just a theory. It's a minority. How do you know? Why are you saying this so conclusively? But when it comes to claims about the Prophet going up and making the Mirage journey on a winged horse and going up to heaven and meeting Moses, right? They never, would you apply the same standard to yourself unless you have solid evidence that actually happened? Hold back on it.
Yeah,
right? So,
that's actually
so
great.
this,
Thank you so much,
that's
Ali.
That's what
a
I'm
great
asking.
point.
Why not apply the same sort of? I'm glad you're applying critical thinking skills to what we're saying, but why not also apply that to your elements?
No, I mean, see, again, my claim was not that. The believers are going to believe, and you are free to, disbelieve. It's a simple. But the thing is, you are blowing something out of proportion and leaving the condition aside. The condition was, if this is true, you make it in a very small font. Okay, if this is true, this will shake the Islamic world. But you say the latter part as like, this has happened and this will happen.
It was understood.
Ali, we're changing. Ali, you ask a very good question, and here, Ali number 2, Mohammed, you're not.
Mohammed
Ali
you're
number
not, 2.
You're not responding to his question. Okay, you're changing. You're pivoting.
I don't need to.
No.
I don't need to scientifically prove. Revelation is evidence for us. It might not be for you, but it is for us.
Revelation.
And,
then
we can agree to disagree.
Then the documentary that I watched, that's Revelation. Okay, so that's Revelation to me, and therefore it's true. Okay, because your standards, you're not, we're taking it out of proportion. The claims Muhammad made, he never provided any evidence for it, and Muslims took it so much out of proportion that it's now a world's major religion. There's 20. Okay, never. But talk about taking out of proportion. But Muslims believe Muhammad got on a wing, not a horse, whatever, Burak, and he went to talk to God, and he split the moon in half. And Ali, great job bringing that up. Can you apply the same standards when it comes to believing in things? Can you apply that to those beliefs as well? Would you do that or no?
That's the belief, and I don't need to apply skepticism to it, because that's something.
Why do you have to apply it to? Then why do you need to apply it to what we're saying? That's the question.
Because you are claiming that it will shake the Islamic world. That's why I said what I said.
Well, you're also claiming that it will shake the entire fabric of the universe. You're claiming we're saying it will. If this is true, it will shake the Islamic world. You're saying that Muhammad is true. Muhammad's claims are true, and there's an afterlife. I think that's a much bigger claim. There's a hell. There's a heaven. So you're talking about shaking the Islamic world. You're talking about shaking the fabric of the universe.
I think. Everybody said everybody's kind of made their point, so we're repeating ourselves now.
Okay.
I want to keep in mind of the time. I know that you've been. Thank you for being generous with your time.
Yeah. By the way, sorry if I'm coming off as a bit aggressive. It's just.
No, that's fine. This is
great.
This is
and sorry if I'm interrupting a lot.
No, I'm interrupting a lot. So you're very sweet and you're very kind, and I hope I'm not discouraging.
Oh my God, you guys are getting along now? I thought you were.
No. By the way, for people that just last thing, for the people that are going to come and comment like, Armin, why are you so mean to the guests? Before we went on air, I told him, and he said no, it's totally fine, and he can take it. This guy has a tough skin. Like he's not sensitive, and he's not a snowflake. He can take it.
Yeah, and I'm actually really enjoying this. I love this
conversation. All right, go.
Sorry, we have around 19 minutes left. Patrons, we're gonna have to be very selective with your questions. I'm gonna try to leave about 3 or 4 minutes.
What would point number 1?
Yeah, so we have to go into point number 1, and this is gonna be quite a bit. So, point number 1. Mohammed, you were saying that a lot of times we make the claim here that Islam should not get credit for the good things that Muslims do. It should be it should not collectively. That's what we say. But you're saying that Islam should get credit for it.
Now, okay, here's the thing. For a second, forget the content of the text and and everything, and just on a human to human level. If there is the example that I gave before, of someone removing a thorn from the path of the walkers. Now, I'm doing this. I know I'm sane, and I have a belief system, and I just did that action. Now, the doer of the good, who is sane and in his right mind, is saying that the tradition of my prophet motivated me to do it, then why should not that religion get credit? The doer of the good, the person who did that good, who is sane and in his right mind, did that thing, and then later on says that my motivation was this tradition of the prophet. Then
obvious counter to that. This is the obvious one. Now, does that, whenever the doer of a beheading of a disbeliever, all right, says that I did this, I say Allahu Akbar, I'm doing this because it says this in Surah Tawbah, because it says it in Surah like the 8, 12, and all of these other verses. When he says that, should Islam get credit for that action too?
Yeah, no, and also
by the same standard that you're saying, should it?
Yeah, no, here's the thing. We, in these things, we get rid of the nuance.
Yes or no?
Yes or
no. There's no
answer Ali's question.
Your answer was a clear yes for the example you gave. So I just want a clear yes or no for the bad stuff that when the doer says that I'm doing this because of Allah.
Yeah, no, because let me tell you.
Okay.
The actions are different. You can whereas the action that I cited is something simple. That has all.
One distinction between the two. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. Nowhere in the Quran, like it doesn't actually say that when there's people walking, then remove the thorns from their path. Okay?
I am not only citing. I'm saying religion.
I know. But I'm saying that in the Quran, it doesn't explicitly say remove thorns from someone who's walking. But in the Quran, it does explicitly, in several places, say smite the disbelievers upon the necks.
Crucify people.
That
hands.
if you read Joe Bradford's open letter to you, you will see in that it was a command to the angels. We are not angels.
And I talked about that in my book. I explained that it was a command to the angels, that the angels were told to smite and then the very next verse says, that this is the punishment for disbelievers. So and in 47, in Surah 47, verse 4, it says the same thing about people who are, quote, spreading corruption. But anyway, that's not the only place. So I have countered that in my book. But what I'm saying is that is an instruction that's explicitly, it's praise. When the angels are told to do it, it's not said that it's a bad thing. It's said that it's a good thing that they did. Okay? Now, the thorn in the path is not actually instructed in the Quran. So why would one get credit and the other not?
Okay. Now, you see, now there is a text. The thorn in the path of the traveler is from the like, let's say if it is a prophetic tradition and something, both of these texts are interpreted and studied, and at the end of the day, the doer of the good will have this all in mind. If
the doer of the bad will too.
Yeah, then the interpretation also plays. If the scholar will say that this hadith is you should take it in this way. This is direct. There is there are no there is nothing implied in it. There is no sidetracking. It's very direct, and you will do it. But you gave me the example of beheading. The actions are drastically different. One has one involves the politics, hidden agendas, and a power play and all that. The other one is just doing something. And
are you going by? Do you want to listen to the scholars or the? Yeah. Just a last question. Do you want to, when you say the scholars, when you say, Jonathan Brown, you talk about all of these people. So I'm quoting ISIS. When ISIS does whatever they do, right? They are quoting the Quran,
Yeah,
right? And they're quoting the Hadith. Yeah. So the thing is that they're not quoting Jonathan Brown. They're not quoting Al Azhar University. They're not doing that. They're quoting purely from the Quran and Hadith. So why everything that you're saying, right? When you talk about the Hadith, when you talk about interpretation, why is it that when we're talking about the thorn being removed from the path of somebody, we're not talking about interpretation when it comes to good
we are. That's my point. We are.
We take it at face value. It's only the scholars and everything, and the interpretation only comes in when it's something disturbing. Why did Allah, if He is such a good writer, why do we need human scholars to interpret a supreme being's word?
Yeah, the Quran was revealed in a language. Language has syntax, and that's why the text is studied. It's not like just because it's a book
But why
from
only
God.
for the bad
Ali,
parts?
we only have 10
Yeah.
minutes, and I've been silent for 10 minutes.
Okay,
Can I
okay.
respond to
Okay.
the original claim?
Yeah,
because
Mohammed,
now we're talking
go ahead.
about
Armin, go
text.
for it.
Now we're talking about interpretation of text rather than the claim. But when you mentioned that, yes, there are some Muslims, right? There are some Muslims that are doing good things that they would not have done otherwise if it wasn't for Islam. There are examples of that. I believe that that's rare. I believe that most Muslims are good people, and I think if somebody is doing a good thing, an act of good, only because it says so in an Islamic commandment somewhere, then by my definition of doing good things, they're not actually doing anything good. They're just following command. They're just following. Wait, let me finish my point, okay? I just think like if you're doing this because you want to score points with your God, or if you want to go to heaven or avoid going to hell, and you just say like I need to do this because this is one thing that is my religion has mandated, and you're not doing it because you want to, you're not a good person. You're just following orders. I believe most Muslims are actually good people. And when they are kind to each other, when they're helping people, they're doing that because they're good people and because they want to do it, not because somebody ordered them to do it. That's what I think how most Muslims are.
Yeah,
I think, and I think because of that, if all of a sudden magically Islam disappears and one day Muslims wake up and all of a sudden none of them believes in Islam, and all of a sudden somehow all of them are convinced that God is fake, Islam is fake, I don't think Muslims are going to go into the streets and start raping and killing and sitting randomly, killing people in the street. If they realize that Islam is fake and God is fake, they're not going to go, okay, so I have no reasons to be good anymore. They're not going to go kill each other. So I know that you can find examples of people that are specifically doing something good because of Islam, but I think for mass majority of Muslims, they're doing good things because they're good people.
Okay,
Mohammed, now just one last response to that. You said scoring points with God. If the fundamental belief is that the innate goodness is placed in us, in our fitrah, by our Creator, then there is no way of
your
scoring
belief,
points.
Though.
Armin, let him finish.
Okay.
Let him finish.
No, but I know. That's his point. I know your point that you're making, but that's cheating because now you're claiming you're claiming the good acts of people under Islam and outside of Islam by saying all acts of good by definition are Islamic. That's basically just putting your premises, just moving it into the conclusion and just I could as easily say okay, that I believe that my Lord.
Let me finish my point. Let me
finish your point.
Okay.
There are two kinds of nafs, and we all know that. And you have to.
We know that, but only one of us believe it.
One.
Okay.
And that's why I said that you have to keep yourself from giving into one. That's the belief. So all this goodness also, that's our belief that it's placed in us innately by the Creator.
That's your belief, though. That's your belief. Okay, so I'm saying good people are are good independent from Islam, and you're saying no, it's because of Islam. And I ask you, why is it true? It's because you're defining. You're saying, well, we believe when people do good things, it comes from Allah. So you're just defining it in a way that it will be impossible to contradict what you're saying, and you're just saying, well, that's what we believe in. Well, I don't care that's what you believe in. I don't believe in that. I believe people do good things independent from religion. I think good people it has nothing to do with God. So yeah, you believe in that.
This is innate.
Good. I don't believe that.
Some people have realized it, and some have not. This is at the end of the day, my belief,
so
your belief.
Okay, so but you have to agree that based on what I believe, right, which I don't believe that all acts of goodness is inspired by Allah, then based on that belief system, right, then most Muslims are good not because they're Muslim and not because of religion. Because the way, for you, the definition of something that comes from Islam is anything that is good is coming from Allah. For me, the definition of something coming out of Islam is that it has to be mentioned somewhere in the Hadith or in the Quran, and somebody has to have read that and has to be consciously trying to follow that. And in that case, I consider that coming from Islam. Not because, by your definition, then everything good is Islam then. Because you're saying, well, even if you're not Muslim, even if you're not thinking about it, when you're doing something good, God is inspiring you. Well, that's cheating, really, honestly. Well, yeah.
Armin, I want to get. We have 6 minutes left, so I want Mohammed, go ahead, uninterrupted, answer the question, and then I want to see if we can squeeze in one patron question. Go ahead.
So once again, a very short answer. It's just we will again agree to disagree. For me, it is something innately placed in us by our Creator, and once you have established in that doctrine, then there's no way of saying we are just doing it to score points with God and stuff like that.
Okay, so you're saying that basically, if I'm doing good things out of the goodness of my heart, even without belief, you're saying that is because God made me innately that way, and God put that morality in me. Okay, all right.
Christians say the same thing.
Okay, so that's a difference in belief, obviously.
Let's move on to the next question.
Let's do the patron. So let's do the patron question, really quick. And I'm gonna choose the one from Manobek. I went through all of them, and I think that there are a lot of really good ones. I'm sorry, I got to be selective. But he's saying, why does the guest think that Islam is true? Is it your faith, or do you have evidence as well? And is faith a reliable method to find the truth?
Faith makes people do things, and there have been a lot of positive contributions to the society by Muslims. And this is although it's not a complete answer, but because we're short on time, I'm just saying that this is something that motivates us. And it is a sign, because it motivates us. For me, it's a sign that it's a measure of an objective truth.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna wrap up, because I want to first of all, I want to say thank you very much. I know there are two of us and there's one of you, and you stepped into the lion's den.
Are you upset about the way we treated you? Are you okay? Was that
no?
What did we do? We didn't treat him bad. It was great.
Well, I just want to make sure I get feedback if we upset our guests. We didn't upset you, did we?
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Cool.
Yeah. So I hope there are more conversations like this. I think you brought up. I think the points that you outlined for us to discuss were good ones, and I think that I will, and I'll credit you for this when we do have other people on the podcast and we open those up. I think that we will discuss these with because I think that these are things that I get from other Muslims who criticize us. These are the things that they are concerned about.
Yeah, you actually did a good job at bringing up the main things I've seen being mentioned against this podcast. Like, you did a very good job at, like, these are the most comments we see. So
yeah,
kudos to you.
Yeah, unfortunately, 90 minutes isn't. I would love to talk to you a lot more.
Yeah.
But and hopefully we will at some point. But thank you very much. Is there anything that you want audience members to know? Do you have a Twitter handle? Any way they can get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you or talk to you more?
Yeah, I sent you my Twitter handle. That's about it.
Can you read it out just for
Yeah.
people who can't read it in the description or listening?
Oh, okay. That's
By the way, while you're looking it up, I'm gonna apologize to our
It's-
patrons for not asking every single question because our guest had a very hard stop at in 2 minutes. So that's why we could stay on, Ali. No, go ahead.
Yeah, we could.
Mohammed.
So go on.
M_Ali at M_Ali Saadi.
Okay.
At,
Cool.
Saadi, that's SADI, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay,
At
Ali, send me the link so I can
M_Ali.
put it in the description.
Saadi, SADI.
I'll put-
So, okay, so thank you very much, and thanks for engaging. You're also a listener of the podcast. Clearly, you've heard a lot of the episodes. You brought them up. I'll tell both Abdullah Samir and Abdullah Gandal that you said hi, if that's okay.
I also,
And then-
by the way, congratulations to listening, being a Muslim and listening to ex-Muslim podcasts. This is, I can tell you, all people on all sides need to do this more. Like this is not a critique of just Muslims. A lot of Muslims only listen to Islamic content, but you are listening to your opposition, which is amazing. And a lot of people on our side only listen to people they agree with. So, I'm really. I'm thanking you. I also thank you for picking our podcast as an opposition to listen to. So,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay.
honored to have
Thank
you
you.
as a
Oh, yeah.
listener.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So we're going to let you go. It's a minute early.
All right.
Thank you very much again. And thanks, everybody. Armin, you want to
Yeah,
stay on
just
for a little
stay
bit?
for 5 or 10 minutes just to we respond to some of these questions ourselves. Okay.
Okay, from our thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, because I feel bad. Like our patrons. Wait, let me just change this thing. Okay, because I feel bad because our patrons, you can't make sure to comment because some of them wanted to make sure the questions are asked. So I feel bad if we don't at least address them, right? So do you want to
Yeah.
just quickly go over them, the ones that we didn't?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's get off. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about the previous interview because he's not here to defend himself. So let's just go with the
I
questions
will.
and answer them. Yeah, I know. I don't. So that was one question from Manobek. Manobek was also saying there is this emerging field of cognitive science of religion. Is the guest aware of the concepts of patternicity, moral foundations theory, evolution of the concept of God? So I actually read, who's this guy? Is it Robert Wright, or who is the one who writes about it a lot? Yeah, no, some of these concepts, I don't really know what they mean by patternicity or what context that's in. So I'm actually not as familiar with it either, but it sounds really interesting. You know anything about it? Cognitive science of religion?
Is that like the God in the God part of your brain where it like lights up when people talk about religious things? I think like a couple of years ago I watched a few things on it. I think I've read about it in Michael Shermer's book. I think I saw some.
Yeah, the idea that we're kind of hardwired to believe in God.
To believe in God. Yeah.
For the same reason that we're hardwired to be superstitious. So that's the interesting thing. That whole sixth sense thing. That way back when we were hunter gatherers, when you're hiding out in a bush, and if we sensed that there was an animal there or there was danger, even if we couldn't see it, smell it, hear it, or anything, we would just not take our chances. We would just get the hell out of there, just based on intuition. So that whole idea of superstition or something, that was a protective mechanism that we had, and religion has that element. It's this idea that instinct of self-preservation.
Michael Shermer's book was Why We Believe in Stupid Things. I think that's what it was called, or something like that. I think I read that
Michael
in
Shermer.
there. I read that like many years ago.
Yeah, Mars is confirming that it's Michael Shermer that you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on. Mike's saying classic no true Scotsman. Okay, Mars is asking, was Dan Barker never a Christian? Hersey Ali never a Muslim? And then he's saying the guest was being disingenuous.
Not disingenuous. Just wrong.
Yeah.
just wrong, not disingenuous.
From our perspective, yeah. So that's true. I think that's one of the weakest areas, right? Where he talked about just the idea that if you take the state of what the knowledge is in the Muslim mainstream and you go with that, unless you have absolute proof that something else is true, which is I just think that's completely
wrong. I mean, if that was their standard, then every time somebody converts to Islam, and he comes and says like, "Oh, my life was horrible when I was a kafir, when I was an unbeliever," the Muslims could go to him and be like, "Stop talking about that. You're not a kafir anymore. You're not an unbeliever anymore. So why are you talking about your life when you were an unbeliever?" Like, no, they love that shit, right?
I know they do. Right. So, and then Buy Everything is saying, I've read dozens of books about Christianity and comparatively few about Islam because there's so much more accessible Christianity stuff out there. A 2-hour podcast adds a lot to the body of info. That's a good point. Actually, because the thing is it goes for everybody, even for me. The only books I read when I was growing up, the only like in Saudi and Pakistan about the Prophet's life were just like he was a rose flowering in the desert. That's the only stuff we heard. We didn't hear any other perspective. So when he says that there's a lot of information, we're being reductionist. The thing is that we're actually introducing new bits of information that most of our audience may not have even heard of before, and that actually has more evidence.
These are information that is out there. They're easy to get, and everybody has access to it, and most people don't know. And we're just sharing it in a podcast format. You don't like that? Go get the book and read it in a book format. Some people like it in a podcast format. Some people want to see 3 people talking about it. And they just make it seem like this is such... I understand that the stories of Muhammad has a little more nuance to it than both pro-Islamic and anti-Islamic. Sometimes they simplify things, and there's more nuance to it. And sometimes people simplify things. Sometimes people simplify things because they're being they're trying to hide something. Sometimes people are giving a simplified version of something for the sake of time, and there's more information where people can go find. But the thing is that it's not as complicated as they make it seem to be. Even if there is more nuance to it, it's not. They make it see that this is like 4D chess or something. Like Life of Muhammad is like a puzzle that only a few people can solve. It's just a story, okay? It's just like it's not more. It's more okay. It's not. It's seriously not that complicated to. Maybe you could discuss the motivations. Maybe that could be complicated. Like you could be like, did this happen? Did this not happen? But the gist of the story and the main events, the discussions, it's not that complicated. It's just a story. I mean, come on, how?
Yeah,
they make it seem like rocket science. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, so there's a lot to it. I think a 2-hour podcast is a great format. Here's the thing, when the argument was that you want to see this in written form. Unwritten, I see small articles all the time. I see small articles that it wouldn't even take 2 hours to read. It would take just like a few minutes just to read through the entire article. So I mean,
don't understand. Like people are saying, like, well, why is this on a podcast? It should be on a written form. Well, then go read it. There's many written forms of it. Go read. Yeah. You don't like podcasts? Go consume your content the way you like it. I don't understand I don't understand.
And I don't want to speak for Mohammed here because I'm not sure if he agrees with this. However,
Mohammed, if you're watching this later, comment in the description. Comment in the comment section. Correct.
But there is I will speak for some of the other people that I interact with. So nowadays, anytime I get all these tweets, especially on Twitter, a lot of these guys, they will quote something I wrote, and then they will say this is bullshit, and they'll challenge it. I'm like, okay, that's great. I'm glad you disagree. Why don't you come on the podcast? Let's talk about it. And they're like, no, I don't want to come on your podcast because then you guys. Because why don't you call me on yours? I'll come on there, or if you don't have one, let's just get on YouTube. Let's have a conversation. And,
I saw that they said, "Oh, Ali, you don't want me on your podcast. I will destroy you. It would be so embarrassing for you." I'm like, well, then come destroy us.
Like, come on,
I will love it. Come on.
No, but I tell them, I'll come on your thing. We'll go on YouTube. It'll be live so that nobody can edit it.
They strawman you. And they know they're being ridiculous. They know they're being ridiculous, and they are scared to come on the show because you call them out on their bullshit. At least, what I will say about our guest today...
I respond to everybody like that, by the way. Yeah. Everybody.
Our guest today... Guys, I know a lot of people in the live chat are criticizing our guest today, but what I will say is that he at least came on the show, okay? Even if he was misunderstanding us or if he's wrong about something, we need to. I congratulate this guy. Okay, I appreciate this guy because he didn't just take a shot at you on Twitter, and when you invite them, they're like, "Oh no, I'm not gonna come on your show because I will destroy you," and they just run away. No, this guy was like, "Yeah, I have some problems with you, and I could come on the show and talk to you about it." Well, thank you. I disagree with you, but you're awesome. I thank you. I really appreciate for being so, at least willing to having a discussion about it. These other people that I see like attack you, for example, on what you said on the show on Twitter, they just make it like they misrepresent what you were saying. They say things that you actually never said, and you go like, and you ask them, well, can you come and talk about it? They're like, no, I will destroy you if I come on the show. Well, then come and destroy us,
Well,
please.
the other thing they say that, well, on a show it's not the same format because it's live. I'd rather have a written exchange. And like, I find that to be a hiding thing. Yeah. And like, if you want to talk about a written exchange, I have done written exchanges with people. I've done that with Faisal Mukhtar. I've done with people I disagree with. All of that. I have written a book.
I know why. I know why they want written form, because they are scared. I think they are scared that
of a live response,
of being caught not having a response or saying something ridiculous. They want to make sure that they get the chance to like look at something, go talk to their friends, think about it, so that they don't embarrass themselves. So they're playing. They don't want to play. They don't want to play on a different level. Even though we're exposing ourselves and we might make mistakes live, and they're trying to catch us make mistakes live on air. They don't want to be put in the same position, and they want to play a different game, even though they're pointing to our mistakes while we were live, right?
I tell them this. I'm like, listen, if you're talking about, and he's like, well, you just do it on the podcast. Why don't you do it written? I was like, have you written a book? Have you written, how many articles have you written? Like, I've done that. Armin has done that. We do a lot of the written format, right? And then we also do this. And the other thing is that, you're saying that we don't have, you can't get the right nuance when you're talking on something. You can't get into detail. Well, why the fuck are you attacking me in a tweet? Like you want to hide behind tweets, and so
like,
there's
your podcast is not nuanced. Here's my Twitter response to it.
So what I did was I actually fortunately he did put me in touch with somebody who I'm going to invite on.
Oh, great.
Who is willing to come on and talk about it. So hopefully that'll be good. A lot of this was a controversy around Armin, your amazing Kaaba image with the rainbow on it.
Oh, really?
Right?
Oh, he wants to talk about that.
I've gotten something like I don't know 5,000 or 6,000 responses completely condemning me to hell and all of that. It's just been absolutely amazing. Like the kind of like the Allah is gay thing.
Well, no, I tell you, the Rainbow Kaaba and the Allah is gay one are the 2 times in my life that I got the most amount of death threats. Right?
I just did too.
So. And I can tell you, and this is very telling about the amount of homophobia that exists in the Islamic community, because I have not received even a fraction of that much death threats when I burned the Quran. Okay? Mm-hmm. I burned the Quran and I uploaded a video on YouTube, and we had Draw Muhammad, contest and everything. The death threats that you get when it comes to making something very holy and Islamic and bringing it right next to something that is LGBT related, these two being next to each other just hits a nerve somewhere that you can't get with anything else. And if
what else?
So the 2 things that got me to the most death threats is when we replaced the Rainbow Kaaba that you just mentioned and the Allah is gay sign at the gay pride parade.
And I also want to. So there's another thing that tells, and that's another thing. So that tweet, right, got something like 5,000 responses.
Wow.
It was reported thousands of times to Twitter.
Wow.
Okay, and Twitter did not take it down. I have like a whole battery of emails from Twitter. Oh, we found this tweet was reported. We haven't found anything objectionable, so we're not taking it down.
Because you're also touching on the holy grail of the left, which is which is the LGBT stuff, right?
Yes, that's what I want to get to. So all I wrote in that thing was, I was like, yes, it's great to see so many people of Muslim heritage coming out for Pride in London. We need to have this conversation, something like that. Right. Completely neutral message with the rainbow Kaaba, and loads of people reporting it, and they were saying this is anti-Islam, and Twitter said no, because there was nothing. And I realize, and I've been talking to, I've been talking privately to Samir and Sohail and all these guys about it, that this is the front on which
that's what I've been telling as well.
The ex-Muslim movement needs to talk, because that is where they will align. We talked about this. We both talked about this in the Birmingham thing with Sophia Johnson, right?
This is why I think the gay ex-Muslims should be there at the front lines of attacking Islam. That
needs to be.
Yeah,
because there is it forces Muslims to choose between. It forces Westerners, and especially Western liberals, to choose between being homophobic or being Islamophobic.
Right.
And when it comes to that, they have to go with they have to criticize it.
We predicted that, because the marriage between the left and Islam was unsustainable, because Islam is against everything left that the left stands for.
Nothing exposes it more than this. Nothing.
And we knew there was going to be a clash, and of course where the clash is going to be LGBT, because LGBT is something that Islam will not accept. Like it's a red line for both of them. The left will not give an inch to accepting any homophobia, and Islam will not give an inch to allowing, tolerance of gay behavior. So this is going to be where the battle is, and this is a weapon
more
that
than
we're going to
hijab,
use more than anything. More than women's rights. This is the battle the gay rights is the battle that you could use against Islam, and nobody on the left can censor you for it. Nobody on the left can take the weapon away from you, and this is going to be this is going to be the most. This is the Achilles heel. This is the Achilles heel of Islam in the West. If you want to take down Islam, you take it down with the gays.
And we're going to actually I don't want to talk about this too. I know we've already talked about it quite a bit. I don't want to talk about it too much right now, because we have Jimmy Bungash coming back on the program.
We're going to tell Jimmy, and also
the next episode.
And I think Jimmy should be front and center at this battle.
And he's such a fucking icon. He's a hero, man.
We should find a way for. The only problem with Jimmy is that he has a full-time job and limited time. We need to find a way to make him somehow.
Yeah, it's like me.
Yeah, I don't know, because Jimmy is so valuable to this whole. Given how important LGBT is to bringing down Islam, Jimmy is more important than ever.
Yeah. So. Chris just wrote out the 5 pillars of Islam: declaration of faith, obligatory prayer, compulsory giving, fasting in the month of Ramadan.
Hey, here's the trick how to remember the 5 pillars. One of them is based on belief. The rest of them is based on actions, right? The one that is based on belief is the shahadat, so that the declaration of the testifying that you believe in God and Muhammad. 2 of them are praying related. 2 of them are poor people related. This is how I'm making it easy.
This is making it even tougher. Just Google it.
Okay, I'm just telling people how to remember it faster.
I know, they can just Google it. Everybody's got a cell phone.
All right, fine.
Let's Google it. Doesn't matter. They don't have to remember it. There's no mnemonic. Okay. Chris is saying, I love it when Armin gets fired up. Razib Khan is saying, go Ayatollah. He's obviously speaking about you. And then Buy Everything is saying, what about the podcast episode about Israel and Palestine? Huge topic, but covered a lot. Should they not do that episode because they couldn't cover everything?
Right.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, and then adding to Armin's comment, would the guest leave out the nastier parts of the faith? Can he deny that the doctrine has harmful effects? I think we covered that to some extent. Razib is saying, does this guy know that Armin is proof of Islam? Of course, everybody knows that. Yeah, apparently. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to take one more question here. I think there's just a lot of comments now. So, yeah, we were talking about the confusion about the 2 Ali.
By the way, if you're listening to this from London, I'm going to be in London August 16th and August 17th. August 16th, there's an event. Search for Atheists Assemble London. come to that event. And August 17th, there's going to be a rally in front of Iran's embassy in London. Well, in front of, actually, there's going to be a rally everywhere for freeing Sohail Arabi in many cities. Just search for hashtag Free Sohail, or just search for Free Sohail, or just look at on my profile on Facebook. There's links to it for where your rallies are going to be. Sohail Arabi is in prison in Iran for insulting Prophet Muhammad. He's been on and off death row. He's been tortured. He's been hospitalized because of the way they beat him in prison. All he did was make a Facebook post that they found insulting of Prophet Muhammad. He's been in jail right now for more than 7 years. Nobody's paying attention to him. His case is not getting any attention, and what we're trying to do is bring more attention to his case on August 17th. We're trying to do it in as many cities as possible. Again, come to look at where these events are going to be and around the city that you're in. Just look at my profile on Facebook. I just search for it. I link to it there. And also, I myself, I'm going to attend the London one on August 17th. And the London one, I know any city that has an Iranian embassy, the event, I'm hoping the rally is going to be in front of Iran's embassy. London has one, so I'm going to be in front of Iran's embassy on August 17th doing this rally. Just if you can attend the event in your area. If you can't, just go on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Take a picture of yourself, or of not yourself, just your hand holding a sign with saying Free Sohail, and post it with hashtag Free Sohail. Make sure you spell Sohail correctly. See how other people spelled it. And then post that picture and let people know that there's protests on August 17th, so that more people know about that we're doing this, and more people come out. We're trying to bring more attention to this guy. Yeah.
Right. And another reminder that Armin and I will both be at the conference, the CEMB conference at the end of August in Amsterdam.
Yes, Amsterdam. But that one is sold out, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh, that's even great. Yeah, it's greater.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so one more thing, and I think this is a good question that Mike sent out. I wish we had asked this, and maybe I'll send it to him in email. He's saying Joseph Smith also had a revelation. Why was Muhammad right and Joe Smith was wrong? And I think that is one of the, we should ask this, because I usually do ask this question to a lot of people when they talk about revelation as a way of the truth. Like Ben Shapiro, he talks about that. Well, revelation is a way to the truth. Well, why is it that if you start believing revelation is a way to the truth, how can you oppose jihadists believing things?
Right.
If you think faith is a good way to get to the truth, and faith through revelation, then you don't have an argument against jihadists. If you do that and you back it up, they do.
I'm just going to tell him that I consider the scholars that I listen to be revelations. There.
Yeah.
Checkmate.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, guys.
All right.
It's sorry, I shut down the screen. So Mike, Chris, Razib, who else was
Blonde
there?
Infidel. Oh, hi.
Mars.
I really hope I get to go to New Zealand one day and hang out with you guys. Mars, Darko, Mike, live long and prosper. He's gonna say, Chris. Who else? John. Oh, I already read that. Thank you. Oh, Razib. Hey, Razib. Thank you guys for being...
Razib, you got to come on the show. We got to talk about that, and we'll do that soon. I think that that's good. Thanks for listening.
Ali, when we're in Amsterdam, we need to make a show in Amsterdam together, me and you, with the guests from the show. We could just go...
Will.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about it. Guys, we're going
to... I already gave a heads up to some of the guests, too. So.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, guys.
All right,
thank you very much, and we're going to talk soon.
All right.
The secular jihadists have been made possible thanks to the Illuminati and the covert support of Israel and the CIA. That's what we have been told, but we haven't received our checks yet. If you like what we do, please support us. Share the podcast with your friends. Write and tweet us with topic and guest suggestions. Or head over to secularjihadist.com and give $1 or more for exclusive access to live video. Have your questions read and answered on the air, and more. Till next time, may the flying spaghetti monster be with you.